Silence is golden. Meditation matters. By Angelo. Chapter 3. Waving Goodbye. Quote, "The heart of man is very much like the sea. It has its storms, it has its tides, and in its depths it has its pearls too." Close quote. That's by Kate Chopin. Waves occur on the surface of an ocean and are most commonly caused by wind interacting with water, but also by tides, severe weather, and underwater disturbances such as earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. Waves appear to move across the ocean surface until they reach the shore and dissipate. The fact that we name them as waves adds credibility to the misconception that a wave is an individual body of water. It has the appearance of a thing in motion, and each wave seems to be distinct from all other waves. Appearances can be deceiving. Waves are actually the movement of energy through water. The ocean rises and falls as the energy moves through, thus creating the perceived effect of a wave on the surface. There is no such thing as a wave. We cannot pick a wave up out of the ocean and present it as an object. At no point is the wave ever made of the same water. It is the movement of energy that creates the apparent temporary existence of a thing called a wave. Waves appear in numerous different shapes and sizes, but they are all just an effect in the water. The entire landscape of countless waves arising and subsiding is just an energetic movement of the ocean. The waves seem to appear and disappear, yet the ocean remains fundamentally the same. A great deal of activity takes place on the surface, yet the depths of the ocean are unaffected. Whatever may take place on the surface, the depths are always undisturbed and peaceful. If we imagine that a wave were to be conscious and possess some sensory perception, then some fascinating insight can be gleaned. It would look around and see other waves and conclude that it was separate. Some waves would be bigger and more powerful, whilst others would be smaller and deemed to be less significant. If it were able to look in a mirror, it would see itself as a thing, and this would reinforce its sense of individual, separate existence. It would be aware of moving through time, and at some point would realize that it will eventually reach the shore and cease to exist. Being fixated with external sensory perception and the sense of movement, it would believe that it was a thing called a wave moving across the surface. It would be so preoccupied with itself as a thing that it would not even realize or understand that it was made of water, or that the water that comprised its apparent existence was never the same from one moment to the next. It would also not grasp the fact that it was in truth an energetic manifestation of the ocean. The belief in individual existence would give rise to self-centered fear, which in turn would manifest as selfish thinking and behavior designed to protect itself at the expense of others. All manner of defensive, negative thoughts and emotions would arise. It would try to chart its own course across the surface of the ocean, and would likely become disappointed and frustrated when its desires were not met. There would be a vague sense that something was lacking, and it would seek to satisfy this longing for wholeness and well-being through all manner of behaviours on the surface. Occasionally some satisfaction would be experienced, but such relief would never last. Meanwhile, the wave would roll relentlessly towards the shore, and there would be an ever-present fear of ceasing to exist. It would watch as other waves reached the shore and disappeared. There would be great sadness and suffering as a result of such demise, especially if there was a strong emotional attachment to the other wave. Eventually, the time would come for our wave to dissipate. In that moment, it would suddenly wake up to the fact that it had never been a thing, but instead always had been, and always would be, the ocean itself. It was just an energetic movement of the ocean. The whole experience of being a wave had been illusory. The truth of the ocean had now been revealed. Prior to death, it had been a wave, but now it is the ocean. How wonderful! Each wave experiences its own unique journey on the surface, but eventually the same truth will be revealed to all of them. Countless billions of waves arise and subside within the ocean, yet the ocean itself does not change. There seems to be some significant impact on the surface and just below, but the deeper we go, the more we find that the depths of the ocean are still and silent. And this is also where we find the pearls. Hopefully the message in this metaphor is clear and obvious, but I would like to invest a few more paragraphs in clarification. This is because it often takes repeated exposure to such profound wisdom before the implications can begin to sink in. The metaphorical ocean is, of course, the vast single consciousness. The currents and waves on the surface are the forces of nature and the material world as we experience it through our minds. Each wave is an animate or inanimate object or a sentient life form. The waves appear in countless shapes and sizes, and each one is unique. The waves appear for differing periods of time and then dissipate. Just as a wave is a constant movement of energy stimulating the water, so each object or sentient being is a constant movement of consciousness, creating the effect of material reality. The life forms are conscious and have sensory perception. They look around at other objects and life forms and consider themselves to be separate and different. They see reflections of themselves, and this reinforces the belief in individual identity. Being fixated with external sensory perception and the sensation of space and time, each life form would believe that it was a thing moving through its own life. The belief in individual existence would give rise to self-centered fear, which in turn would manifest as selfish thinking and behavior designed to protect itself at the expense of others. All manner of defensive, negative thoughts and emotions would arise. It would try to chart its own course through life, and would likely become disappointed and frustrated when its desires were not met. There would be a vague sense that something was lacking, and it would seek to satisfy this longing for wholeness and well-being through all manner of behaviours within the seemingly material world. Occasionally some satisfaction would be experienced, but such relief would never last. Meanwhile, the life form would move relentlessly through time, and there would be an ever-present fear of ceasing to exist. It would watch as other lives came to an end. There would be great sadness and suffering as a result of such demise, especially if there was a strong emotional attachment to the other individual. Eventually, the time would come for its own life to dissipate. In that moment, it would suddenly wake up to the fact that it had never been a living thing, but instead always had been and always would be consciousness itself. It was always just an energetic movement of consciousness. The whole experience of life had been illusory. The truth of consciousness had now been revealed. Prior to death, it had believed that it was a living being, but now it is known to be consciousness. How incredible! Such revelation is the ultimate peak experience and is beyond expectation or comprehension. The wonderful thing about human beings is that we have the capacity to contemplate our own existence. If we are able to absorb perennial wisdom, then it will soon become apparent that we are not who we thought we were. Instead of believing ourselves to be separate, personal, self-centered humans, we will begin to see that we are individual expressions of the single consciousness. The wave can awaken to its own true nature whilst it is still a wave. The human being can wake up to the truth that it is consciousness. This brings deeper meaning to the invocation to know thyself, which was carved into the Temple of Apollo in Delphi some 2,500 years ago. The qualities of consciousness previously noted are silence, stillness, peace, love, bliss, eternity, infinity, and wholeness or unity. These are the qualities that seem to be missing from our lives, and this apparent lack drives our instinctive behaviours. We spend our lives searching for these very things in the material world, yet somehow we never seem to find them on any sustainable basis. As mentioned before, the great irony is that what we are looking for is the place that we are looking from. We already are consciousness, but we are seeking the qualities of consciousness in the material world. We already are what we're looking for. Now comes the most crucial piece of understanding. This pearl of wisdom is so often missed or overlooked. We think we will find what we are looking for on the surface, and the result is that we retain our identity as a wave, and sometimes even reinforce this identity by becoming a religious or spiritual wave. It is a subtle trap, and one that is so easy to fall for. It is not possible for a wave to dive below the surface of the ocean. The wave is not a thing, and therefore there is no thing that can sink into the depths. It is an impossibility, however hard we may try. We become spiritual seekers and engage in various practices in order to become better waves, but revelation still eludes us. The harder we try, the more elusive it seems to become. This is a recipe for doubt, frustration, and perhaps even despair. For revelation to occur, it is not the wave that dives below the surface. The wave needs to relinquish its strongly believed identity as a wave and allow its sense of existence to sink into the depths. The wave remains on the surface, but the belief that I am a wave gradually becomes the certain knowledge that I am the ocean. If we try to maintain our identity as a wave, even a deeply committed religious or spiritual wave, then we will remain on the surface of life and miss the opportunity. The qualities of consciousness are our own true nature. We deny ourselves the opportunity to experience these qualities when we insist on remaining on the surface. The key to unlocking the door to our self-created prison is to become willing to let go of our identity as a separate, personal, self-centered human. There will, of course, be fear in letting go, but the human life will continue even though we die to our previous sense of existence. Indeed, a human life lived on this deeper basis will thrive and shine in ways that were previously unimaginable. Such an awakening to our true nature will not only reveal the beautiful qualities of consciousness experientially. As we increasingly abide as consciousness through practice, we channel these qualities into the surface world through our individual body-mind instruments. We become agents of consciousness, and such agency is of benefit to all those with whom we come into contact. Most of us want to be of loving service to others. The best way to be of service is to wake up to the underlying truth of consciousness and to become an expression of it. Whatever storms may be raging on the surface of the ocean, the deeper we go down below, the calmer it becomes. At the ultimate depth, there is utter stillness and silence. Likewise, as we abide at increasingly higher vibrational levels of consciousness, we will experience peace and silence, whatever may be happening at the surface level of life. We become detached observers of our lives, rather than being tangled up in the drama of it all. This is the peace of consciousness that passeth all understanding. This is the true meaning of serenity. As our opening quote suggests, there are pearls in the depths of humankind. These pearls are the qualities of consciousness, such as silence, stillness, peace, love, bliss, eternity, infinity, and wholeness. These are the pearls of wisdom. We are all consciousness, and therefore we all have these pearls deep down within. These qualities are heavenly. The kingdom of consciousness is within us. Heaven is not some imaginary place high above the surface of the ocean. Heaven is our own true nature. The way to experience heaven is to wave goodbye to our obsessive, addictive attachment to the belief in a personal body-mind identity. Perennial wisdom suggests that we should engage in practices that will deepen and expand our sense of existence. We practice and keep practicing until we abide in and as consciousness itself.